colleague, my partner, and freedom fighter par excellence, Robert Spencer, to give us his thoughts.
Thank you all for coming out. Can you hear me? I want to ask the same thing Pamela asked. What is happening to America? What is happening that this kind of case, why should we even have to be here today when it's so obvious that this woman was murdered? And yet we have to believe that she banged her head against a coffee table until she died? This is so ridiculous. And there is something very clear behind it. In Jordan, a few years back, the Parliament was considering a bill to stiffen penalties for honor killing, because in Jordan, because of Islam, if you kill someone for honor because they've brought shame on the family, then you get off easy. It's not like another murder. So if you can prove, well, I killed my daughter because she brought shame on the family, then you get off. And a bill was introduced to make honor killing just like any other murder, and Islamic clerics blocked it. They said it will destroy the family. We have to have the honor of the family preserved. And all over the Islamic world, if you can prove that you killed somebody for honor because they brought shame on the family, no problem. You might serve a year or two in prison, but nothing like for an actual murder. Now in the United States, we believe that all people are equal before the law. And we believe that murder is murder. And that anybody who is murdered deserves due process for the murderer. And the murderer should be brought to justice. And instead, we have the same thing coming here. And there's another thing at play as well. Being a Muslim apparently means now you can get away with murder in the United States. But it also means you've never done anything wrong. I've been tracking Islamic jihad activity at jihadwatch.org for 10 years now. And one thing that I have never seen, not once, ever, was a Muslim spokesman taking responsibility and saying, yes, Muslims do terrible things in the name of Islam. Yes, it's a horrible thing that these things are being done in the name of Allah. They never do that. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always, well, it's Israel's fault, or the United States is bombing here in Afghanistan or something, and we were just retaliating. Even 9/11 was retaliation. You know what for? Because we put troops in Saudi Arabia to fight against Saddam Hussein in Iraq, to help the Saudis out. But that was this terrible insult he took down the Twin Towers for. Now the point here is this. This is the same thing happening again. That this is clearly an honor killing, and I don't have any hesitation in saying so. Clearly a murder. But we're having the same phenomenon come here now and introduced into American law and American courts, that Muslims never do anything wrong. They have no responsibility for anything. And if there is something that they have done, it must be some other explanation. There's nobody to blame on this other than the obvious perpetrators, and so they rule it a suicide instead. Well, who got paid? Who got paid? This is a serious question, because there was an autopsy. There was a crime scene examination. And I am not a doctor, and I am not a policeman, and I'm not a lawyer, and it's obvious to me, it's obvious to anyone, that this was a murder. And so these guys who do this 24 hours a day, they do this every day of the week, this is their life, this is their professional livelihood, and you're telling me that they couldn't see that this was a murder and not a suicide? Who paid them? Who's behind this? We are here to call for, and every one of us has the responsibility, like Pamela was saying, to call for a full investigation, not only of the murder of Fatima Abdallah, but of the cover-up of the murder of Fatima Abdallah, and of the influence that is being wielded by Islamic groups in the United States that are trying to bring Islamic law here that would set up Muslims as a special class with special rights that other people do not have, including getting away with murder. It cannot stand, it must not stand, and it will not stand. We stand for equality of rights for all and for justice for all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so with that, I would like to bring on the great freedom fighter and ex-Muslim Nonie Darwish, who knows firsthand what it means to live in a society in which Islamic law holds sway.
It's a great honor to be here. Thank you for all of you being here. You are the new patriots of America. That's who you are. I was born and raised as a Muslim in Cairo, Egypt, and also in the Gaza Strip. And I remember the days I lived under Islamic law. And I witnessed honor killing. I lived in a police states where men fathers and brothers can kill their sisters and their daughters. And I know personally a girl who was killed by her brother and father, who killed her together. She was our maid. She was only 16. And she came to our home through an agent in Cairo. And my mom noticed from the very beginning that her stomach was big. So she took her aside and she asked her, what is that? How did this happen? And she confided in her that the house she worked in before coming to our home, the man was raping her. And according to Islam, raping a woman is not a maid or somebody in your home that's considered almost like sexual slavery, is allowed under Sharia. And that's how she was treated. My mother didn't want to send her back to her family because she knew they were going to kill her. She sent her to a government agency. She did deliver the child, and a year later, the agent who brought her to us, he came to us and we asked him, how is she? And he told us in Arabic to my mom, "Ta'isht ya seti," meaning, may your life be prolonged, madam. In Arabic, if somebody's dead and you ask, how is your uncle or your dad, and they died, they say, may God prolong your life. So I screamed because I was her age at that time. I was 16 also. And I said, what happened to her? And he said, her father and brother took care of her disgrace. She was raped, but the man who was raping her, nothing happened to him. She was the one punished with her life, because after having had a child out of wedlock, she has become so dirty that nobody was going to marry her, and she had brought dishonor to her family and to Islam. And believe it or not, when we learned of this crime, my mother didn't report it to the police. We never thought of reporting it to the police because the police in Egypt allow it. They don't respond to honor killing. Another maid told us that in her village, that one day there was a body of a woman floating in a river, in the river Nile, in front of kids playing, and everybody ignored it. It kept floating until it disappeared.